What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we're joined by 10th Man and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Very good morning to all.
Yay, the live stream worked today, no technical issues. Excellent.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, Discord. Hello, Nathan. It's really good to be here.
Yeah.
Super
Good
enthusiasm. How come you're here so early,
John.
QE?
Good morning, buddy.
This is the first time you've been here for the start of a live show in about 3 months.
I've been up for an hour and a half. No, 5:32, whatever. Long time. I'm changing my schedule.
Fair enough. Ah, pleasure to have you. You can join in with housekeeping. Or encourage others to join in with housekeeping. Let's put it that way. Right, let's do this. Let's do this. Everyone ready? It's going to be an epic housekeeping. I can feel it.
Let's go.
Right, let's start with any evidence of a physical Earth curve edge obstruction, formerly known as Earth curve, currently destroyed as the geometric horizon that we can't see, can't measure, only exists in the maths. Any evidence of Earth curve?
Not from QE's new tangent point.
You mean the one that Al-Biruni calculated?
Yeah, the one that Al-Biruni saw and measured as a physical obstruction, but it is simultaneously told to us that we cannot see and only exists in the maths. Yes, that one. Correct, Rebel. Hey, Paul.
Right. I believe he saw it, but he only saw it on the Monday in the afternoon, about 5 after 1. See, if he went there like on Tuesday morning, on or some other day or other season, he would see something else. So I believe Al-Biruni, he just didn't do it the next day.
I mean, that might be your just so story for the add-on problem that Al-Biruni faces in the current rhetoric, but if you keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate Rebel, you'll find that they're telling us quite specifically that we do not see, cannot see, wouldn't expect to see a geometric horizon, and it only exists in the maths. So by the rebuttals we're currently getting from the globe side, it would seem that Al-Biruni just did not see it, could not measure it. And it didn't exist in the maths back then because he didn't get the maths from measuring it because he couldn't see it. It's just a big problem for the globe, really.
What globe?
Right. That's why I'm saying it's a different observation on a different day. So but a priori they would have to say that he couldn't see it because they would have to concede you can never see it.
That's right. It's epic, isn't it? Isn't it great?
Yeah, but they got their radius.
I mean, that's where the whole thing started, according to the narrative. That's where it dies, in my mind. Like, we don't have to go into space even. That's where it started. That's where it dies.
I totally agree. Quick couple of shout-outs. Shout-out to Rob Wiggles. He says, Super Chat works! Indeed it does. Thank you very much for the Super Chat, though. Really appreciate your support, Rob Wiggles. And also, Dank. Better double check. Oh, right. Thank you very much for checking that the Super Chat works, chaps and ladies.
Good morning, guys.
Hello, Chocolate. Good to have
What's
you.
up? Thank you, sir.
Guy. Any evidence of the distance to the sun? Hey, Arwin.
What would that be again?
Any evidence of the distance to the sun? Hey, 10th man. Welcome back.
Yes, it's very hot.
It's over there,
Okay.
but it's hot.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
over there. Any evidence
Have
of the
you seen
distance?
it? Have you seen the skies over here?
Gonna storm. There's gonna be a storm here.
Not a single cloud.
Yeah, beautiful for you, stormy for me.
Really?
Yeah.
So you got yesterday's storm, did you?
I got it yesterday. It was lovely. As I ran around shop to shop looking at horrible, boring fridges. Had to
Right.
put on a mask for the first time.
The sun is over there. It's kind of behind the roof. But yeah, no distance to it, only apparent distances, and that's purely dependent on the will of the observer if they want to reify it into a physical, literal object.
No, we don't
Well, you
suffer
have to
physical assumption
presuppose
bias here.
you're on a sphere for 93 miles, 93 million miles number. You have to presuppose you're on a sphere, so no evidence.
Who is that?
That was Rebel.
Hey, can
Did
you
we
hear
lose
me?
Nathan?
Uh-oh.
Someone's
Yeah,
at my
we're
front
having
door. I'm really
technical
sorry. Can you take
difficulty.
over the housekeeping, 10th man? Bear with me a second.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Any evidence of Earth radius, the R value?
Black Swan.
Love that sound. Anybody in Discord? Any evidence of Earth radius, the R value?
Yeah.
Not even.
Black Swan took a dump in that word soup.
Okay. Any evidence of axial rotation, the Earth-based variety?
The stars are moving.
Got a stroppy phone
anyone?
call.
X.
Got a stroppy
Wait,
phone
the
call from
stars are
a...
both.
Sorry to interrupt. I got a stroppy phone call from a delivery driver. It's like, I've been knocking on your door. Why aren't you answering? I'm like, I didn't hear anything. My bad. I'll come to my front door. I open my door, and he's there knocking on my neighbour's door.
It was refraction. He thought it was your door.
you know, and someone's barking down the phone at you like you've done something wrong. And I'm like, I'm in a flat. How can I not hear the front door being knocked? Well, when it's not my door being knocked, I'm not going to hear it.
Must be a baller.
Where are we at in housekeeping? My bad for disappearing. Sorry about that.
We just finished the axial rotation and R value.
Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No, possible.
Impossible to test. You can't even calculate gas pressure without establishing a container.
Yeah, the ballers are going to need a container to prove that without the container, I don't know where they're going with this.
They're not is the answer to that. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, still waiting for Dr. Becky from 2019, and he won't answer the emails. Hiding.
She keeps pumping out the videos, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She likes the YouTube life. Good for her as YouTube goes. You know, more power to her. Good for you. Keep up the good work on YouTube. However, would stone you metaphorically if you were to come here and assert your globe Earth belief. But good luck on YouTube.
We'd stone her in a nice way, though, like, you know, a nice stoning.
A metaphorical
Well,
stoning.
that's-
Metaphorically stoning her.
Yeah, metaphorically, she doesn't want a rocky start.
You say
He
you
who
covered...
throws the first globe.
Yeah, he who is
Love
without
her.
sin to throw the first globe.
I'll kick her
Good.
in the stones.
You what, sorry?
I'll kick her in the stones.
Was that... No tranny bashing here.
No,
Metaphorically?
you don't hurt ladies.
Isn't
moving on.
stones a weight measure in England? Don't they say stones when they weigh people?
Correct.
Yeah, but that's why I said throw the globe, because it doesn't exist. It's not going to hurt her.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I don't know, when I was maybe 20, that's not a universally understood thing in Imperial. People don't often use stone. So when I'm like, well, I'm 14 stone, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
14 pounds in a stone, for anybody who's interested. Anyway, where were we? Did you say you did Molten Iron Core and R value already?
No, just R value and axial.
Okay.
Well, he did the axial rotation, and then Arwen said something like, "Oh, the stars are rotating." Maybe we should ask that question. Why are the stars rotating when you're not on the spinning ball? Since that's asserted as the reason why the stars are rotating.
I mean, to solve that problem in the way that the trench level fundy solved the problem with Coriolis, is that they assert that they're in the same reference frame, right? But
they usually do.
Coriolis, not Coriolis, please.
Well, they usually do, but are the stars in the same atmosphere?
Well, that's what I was going to get to. They've already extended it out to the moon, so why not just have Earth generating so much atmosphere that everything in the entire presupposed Milky Way / heliocentric style universe, their descriptions of what the sky is, just have our atmosphere extend out to the astronomical distances as well, and have it all rotating around us in our atmosphere. Why not?
Or maybe Earth is rotating underneath it. That would be easier.
I would love for somebody to come in here and tell us the stars are in our atmosphere. That'd be great.
But it isn't, Darwin. That's the problem.
Yeah, but the stars go over the horizon.
If they're getting circumpolar rotation from the ISS, then it has nothing to do with us rotating underneath as a non-inertial spinning reference frame. That can't be applied if you still see the same polar rotation from the ISS, which is claimed to be in the inertial reference frame. You can't have it both ways. It's the same. It's just another slip-up. And Mitchell from Australia correctly identified that it's just a way of them getting you to beg the question and argue about whether or not you should or shouldn't have star rotation in a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum. So good for you, Mitchell, for nipping that in the bud straight away. Because, yeah, that's how I view it. I think it's just a way of getting them to beg the question of a sky vacuum space and whether or not you see star rotation's irrelevant, and buys into the convoluted cluster screw that is Coriolis arguments. So, let's argue about whether or not we've got Coriolis in space, because that'll really mess things up to the point where nobody can understand any of it.
Hey, while we're on star rotation,
nobody caught my follow-up argument.
Go on, what's your follow-up argument? Was it a good one or a I'm going to be appealing to nonsense one?
No, well, I think it is based on a common misconception, but hey, the Earth has to be a spinning globe, because otherwise, why would the stars rotate behind the horizon?
That's a begging the question fallacy. Hold on. You're just assuming physicality at the horizon, though, aren't you? Behind the horizon. So what? It's a physical sphere edge for it to rotate behind it as a sphere. You're just begging the question 6 ways from Sunday, Arwen.
But it would have to be, because otherwise the assumption that the globe of the heavens is a globe surrounding the spinning ball Earth makes no sense.
That's a different begging the question fallacy. You've just switched it onto something completely different now. What's with this dance that you're doing? What's going on, Arwen?
I don't know. I'm just trying something.
Fair enough.
Okay, so let's not take it out to the second law of thermodynamics violation, like where the ISS is supposed to be. A simple helicopter hovering. Why are the stars still rotating and the Earth is not spinning underneath the helicopter?
Yeah, you can't have it both ways. You can't have it not rotating because it's not rotating as a separate reference frame and rotating together and giving you Coriolis. You can't have it both ways.
Conservation of momentum, Nathan. Conservation of momentum.
Not Coriolis, though, is it? Conservation momentum doesn't give you a 15 degrees an hour deviation to prove Earth spinning.
But I don't think there is Coriolis effect on Earth.
Hey, I just posted a StarTale short video from last night. If you want to, it's a masterpiece. If you want to play, it's 10 seconds long. Took 2.5 hours to get.
How long does it take the ISS to go around the Earth, supposedly?
90 minutes.
Told you.
So 90 minutes. So 2.5 hours for my 10 seconds, and compared to the ones from the ISS in the length of the star trails, and you could see a vast difference.
Okay.
You see the shooting streak in the sky, the plane? Mic check.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, why is that plane not rotating either?
That's a good point.
So the Earth is rotating, but that plane is just right there, making a straight line.
So it's not deviating. Not got
Well,
Coriolis.
it's Coriolis
Not got Earth
then.
rotating underneath. Any
Wow, that's a good
scientific
point.
any scientific evidence of gravity?
Go down, go boom boom.
Yep. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
well, they told us that it's not a force, so how could there be any evidence for it?
That's not true. Rumpus was backtracking that all the way yesterday. Remember?
What do you mean backtracking?
Basically saying like, no, it is really force. Just, yeah,
Well-
doesn't really work out, but it is still a force. And everybody that said that it's not a force actually did say it was a force after all. We were cherry picking or something.
How could it be an effect and a force at the same time?
It isn't, right. There's two different types of gravity as asserted by Rumpus. One is Newtonian, one is Einsteinian. The one superseded the other. He didn't address that. The one that has superseded the other is not a force. Now, he said that when I gave him quotes of two different people making it plain that it's not a force, he said, yeah, but later they made it clear that we do treat it like a force, though, and we absolutely must. That was his explanation. So it's not a force, but we must treat it as one. Because the pseudoscience pretender clown muppets tell us we must. All right. Yeah, I included the declaration by George Musa that you can think of it as a force as part of his quote. Yeah, you can think of it as a force in defiance of his statement that it's not one, if you want to. We realise that by thinking of it as a force, you'd be guilty of a reification fallacy, because it's not a force, it only exists in maths.
Has anybody ever asked them why? Why do you have to think of it as a force if it's not? Have they
Because-
ever addressed that?
Yeah, because they need a downward vector to stop gas from expanding in all directions in their heliocentric model to fill the availability of volume as a sky vacuum. So they need a force, and they don't have one. So they conjure one out of maths, and then convolute it when giving an explanation for how you can have gas pressure in violation of natural law without a container. Because their model includes gas pressure without a container, which violates natural law. So therefore they need a force at trench level to assert we have holding gas here. And then you can reify that force by changing gas into, say, a solid and pouring it through a gas at its higher density with its intermolecular bonds and watch it go down, go boom, boom, and say that's what gas does when I pour a solid through a gas. Because we've got gravity in this maths, which isn't a force, but I can and must think of it as a force. So to think of it as a force, I'll turn it into a solid. That kind of bollocks, Arwin.
All right.
Yeah, they actually omit
Isn't there-
the effort and energy that they put into picking something up to drop it in the first place. So that's why they have to have their force.
Violations of logic in this description that I've been hearing. The law of identity and also the law of non-contradiction going on here. So it's a force, but not a force. And then it's the law of identity. What is a force? What is a non-force or not a force? And then you can't contradict. I mean, if it is a force, but it's not a force, it's a contradiction. Law of non-contradiction. It's fallacious, I think, right off the bat. If you start going that direction, right?
Absolutely spot on. You can't be A and not A at the same time.
Right. So it's a law of non-contradiction.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're right.
And
A law of identity violation as well.
And a reification. So we got all types of problems here.
Yeah, gravity's got a lot of issues. Shout out to SX0. They also need it to bend water level. Oh, right, yeah, of course. It's a catch-all kind of thing, SX0. You're absolutely right. Good point. Gravity's kind of a band-aid that they'll utilise whenever necessary. They just kind of, as Quantum Eraser puts it, begurk it out. Begurk! Gravity! So it's used for all sorts of things. Oh yeah? Why is this perfectly level water that we're utilising to make buildings not fall over and assess the land as its level nature, even by your own geodetic surveyors when they map out a tangent plane? Why is that water level not water level on your sphere? Well, because of gravity. And gravity will mean that when you move your position mathematically to a different position, you draw a new centre to the new presupposed spherical Earth that you're standing on. Therefore, that position has moved in terms of the flat water that you're looking at. Even though it is still perfectly flat, when you move your position relative to the centre of Earth, it's changed. Therefore, it's not bent. Therefore, it's not flat, it's bent. Because of gravity. Another trench-level bullshit explanation for something that doesn't make sense or work. You can't both be level and flat and bent. Another violation of the law of identity. You can't be bent and flat. You can't be not level and level. That's just nonsense, but that's what they have to assert with non-Euclidean geometry. One of those, that must be one of the most painful things cognitively to deal with. So shout out to Bev Try Thinking, who's currently dealing with a lot of fundies who have a problem with this particular issue. You know, and he seems like a fairly, laid back kind of guy, does Bev? He's like, yeah, I just get that level is level, and these guys have a real problem with it. To them, level isn't level. Level's level at your location based on a presupposition that your zenith would move down through your head and to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. Therefore, level's not level if you move over 100 yards. Go on, was that Arwin?
I was just thinking.
Go on, Paul.
Oh. I was just thinking about
level's not level at your location. That would mean it would have to be level at some other location. But what if somebody's at that location?
Let's the other way around. Level's always level on a globe at your location. So you draw your zenith to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, and from your location, if you were to do some surveying, for instance, once you've made that presupposition, well then your tangent plane that you're actually going to measure things on is actually level, and you'll use Euclidean principles to measure it as level, like water levels being level, to give you a level surface to measure and build things on. So they will automatically assume that they've moved to a different presupposed spherical Earth central point if they map out a new tangent plane 200 yards over. So then obviously they've moved and they have to presuppose where they are now pointing, but then they'll do the same exact process. They'll map out a plane and actually build on it or assess it with level principles and Euclidean geometry after they've begged the question that they stood on a sphere. So every location that you start at will be level. It's just always changing based on the presupposition once you move to a new location and map out a new tangent. The tangent being your presupposition that you're on a sphere.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Not really.
Something I heard.
Go on, Paul.
Something I heard. I think I wonder if it was Rumpus or somebody, and he kept arguing that QE was doing philosophy and not science. And I go, what is philosophy? Philosophy is basically how you process and think about information, or help you define terms, and logic's involved in philosophy. You can't, when you're trying to describe or do things, you've got to have a certain level of philosophy in your process, like the law of identity that we talked about earlier, the law of non-contradiction. Even in science, those things still have to apply. So if you remove the philosophy out of your description or what you're trying to do, then you can just do anything you want. Anything can mean anything. anything can do anything, according to whatever you want. So philosophy, even say philosophy is science, you got to have good philosophy to do good science. In a sense, not what I mean by that is not necessarily the scientific method, but just processing, using induction logic to figure out what's going on, or even in using the scientific method, there's an element of the law of non-contradiction, law of identity involved in that, because you got to describe your terms, what's going on. Things can't be A and non-A at the same time. Even in that realm, philosophy is important, or logic's important, even more so. Would you agree?
I see what you're saying. You're saying that when you're rigorously defining your terms within the scientific method, technically you're applying a certain degree of philosophy, like the Socratic method, in terms of your rigorous definition of each term or variable that you're going to be manipulating or observing as an effect. However, do you know the difference? Because although science has its roots in philosophy, there is a very distinct difference between the two. There's a very specific thing that defines the two as distinctly different. And do you know what that specific detail is, Paul?
No, off the top of my head. Experiment. Oh, yeah. Experiment.
Yeah. The experiment stage is what does it. It's the empiricism that the method offers. So at the end of the experiment stage, you'll prove your alternative or prove your null, making the method empirical. So although the derivation, what's the word? The making of the method, the formulation, there we go, of the method was through philosophy, but the method itself is empirical, and that's the difference.
Right, but I mean, the law, the law of non-contradiction is involved, like you're in your hypothesis or your experimental stage. We know it's not this, so it is this, but it's not this. If it's both of those, then your experiment falls apart, because then which is it? So you know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you were to take
it sounds
an
like
example,
you're dealing with what is this though.
You take an example that they would assert as science in this context. So if you say Cavendish, before you even get to their claim to be experimental stage, when you take it through the steps of the method, you find that with the use of the Socratic method and defining the terms that they're going to be using, they have an equivocation in the form of mass. So when you get to the Socratic method of defining what they will be using when they formulate their hypothesis, they don't get past the hypothesis stage because of its roots of empiricism, and also the Socratic method being applied when you're defining terms. You find that you haven't got a specific thing to be manipulating. They also have it as the cause and the effect in the hypothesis, so it suddenly becomes riddled because of your application of certain philosophical values that you would apply upon formulation of the hypothesis. So I'm totally agreeing with you, Paul. You're absolutely right in your point, but I just want to make it clear that while we're detailing some aspects of philosophy in the scientific method, the method is empirical because of experimentation.
Sorry, I was trying to get the mute button. Agreed. So I just don't want to blow by that when they started throwing out, that's just philosophy of science. Well, you got to have philosophy in science in the right kind of way, and rigorously defined. Exactly.
Yeah, again, when someone says the philosophy of science, I would peg them down on what they actually mean by that. What are they asserting? Because if they're applying that to the natural science, then they're wrong. Because no, there's no philosophy involved. It's absolutely empirical. That's my point. So if you're going to say, oh no, well, when you're establishing your cause and effect and doing your experiments, well, there's a certain degree of philosophy in there. No, there isn't at all. Once you've got an actual effect that you've observed and you've got a presumed cause of it that you're trying to vary to cause it, there's no philosophy in that. There's just there's no concrete nouns. There's just your presumed cause of something you've observed. That's it. The thing is real. It's been observed in nature. So will be your presumed cause of that effect and your capability of varying it. So like you say, you are right. Once you formulate the hypothesis, you're going to get caught out or not have a viable hypothesis if you've got something in that doesn't exist, for example, or isn't rigorously defined, like mass. So yeah, things will fall on its ass because the people who developed the method were smart people. They were philosophers, and therefore they get to devise an empirical method. What other methods are there that are entirely empirical by nature? You name another. You're going to be a smart philosopher to come to that empirical method. Did we have them
I'm
all?
done.
I
I
think.
thought that might
Go on.
create more discussion within the Globers if they're out there too, but obviously it didn't.
Hey, Nathan, just a technical update. I've restarted my phone twice. I get you on YouTube on my phone, and then it goes to a black screen, but the chat is working. Am I the only one?
I got a screen on YouTube.
Yeah, I have it on my iPad as a panel member, but for some reason, when I'm following the show on my phone on YouTube, the chat is working and the screen starts right away, but then it goes to black. But it says live. And I've restarted my phone
I'll keep
twice.
an eye on
so-
it. 10th. It seems to be okay from my end on the live
Okay,
stream.
that's fine.
So.
I just
No, I'd rather you
Thinking for
mentioned it. Okay, so do you want me to put these screenshots at 10th man? You've sent me 4.
Yeah, by the way, there's a chat. Gamer Mark YouTube says 10th man is correct. I think he's having the same problem I'm having, but just so you know. Yeah, you can put those screenshots there.
When I first checked it, it said I was offline, so there is definitely an issue. However, it seems to be fine now, so hopefully
Yeah, go
if
ahead.
there is technical issues. We're being recorded anyway, so this will go out hopefully without too much technical jargon about the live stream having issues. It's had issues for the last couple of days, like glitchy. So let's just continue. If it does have any more issues, so be it.
No, I'm fine. Yeah, the pictures, are they up?
Mhm.
Okay, so this is interesting. I found these time-lapse photography near an airport. As you can see, if you're looking at the same one I'm looking at with the telephone pole in the middle, the moon crossing the sky, and then the airplanes and their patterns. You see that?
Yeah, I've got it in. It's like a tornado-ish sort of thing, but with a few straight lines going through it, right? The first image.
Well, the first image with the telephone pole that's centered,
Yeah.
is that the one you're looking
Yeah.
at? And the moon?
Yep.
See look at the star trails behind the airplane flights. So you can see the star trails, but look at the airplane flights doing. See, but the telephone poles are steady and not moving because the Earth is not moving. If the Earth was moving, all those airplane trails, moon trails, star trails, they would be shown by the Earth's movement, and it's not. Next picture, same thing. You have a nice shot of Polaris to the top left of the picture, a tree in the foreground, and again, near an airport and all the different flights. Next picture, it looks like it's over a graveyard, but near an airport, and you can see concentric circles behind the airplane as well. There's a great imagery. I wish I was near an airport. I'd do one. This next one is awesome. What a line of sight he's got. He's got the star trails as well as the head on to the airport runway there. It looks like a sparkler, actually. And then I think there's one more, right? Is
Yeah, I think so.
that the one with the houses?
Got like a cityscape in the background.
Oh, okay, that's a cityscape, all right. Yeah, that's another one with a cityscape. You can see star trails faintly behind the airline. Everything's being recorded. And the last one, is that the one with the houses?
One with what looks like Polaris Center.
Oh, okay, that's another one there. I'm following on my photo album. So, yeah, there's Polaris in the center, and the airlines are on the left side with a curve to it. Yeah, I think the last one's the one with the houses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have to realize when and Mitchell knows this from Australia. Good job there. There's several options here. One, the stars are moving at 15 degrees per hour. 2, the Earth is moving. Or the ISS is moving. Well, one thing's for certain, they tell us the ISS is moving, and they give us a number, 17,500 miles, orbiting. So where's the camera on the star trails that are shot in this second law of thermodynamics violation? Are they not on the ISS, moving at 17,500?
No, it's on the ground.
No, the ones that NASA says they took from the ISS.
Oh,
The camera is on a moving object, the ISS.
no, it isn't.
No, the one from yesterday.
Yeah. Let's get the disclaimers in the way. I'll do it, and I know it's a sidetrack to your point, but it's still the overall overriding point. No, there is no camera falling around Earth. That's the begging the question fallacy of orbits at 17,000 miles an hour, or 17,500 miles an hour, in a second law of thermodynamics violation, sky vacuum. Neither of those things are true. Nothing is ever going to be demonstrated in terms of orbitals. That's not going to happen. Same goes for the sky vacuum. No one's going to prove you can have gas pressure without a container. Therefore, what they claim of the ISS and its pictures are automatically fake.
Correct. That's why I said it's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Before I said, but that's what they accept. The ballers believe that the ISS is in space with a camera taking those pictures. And what I've just shown you, and anyone that's worked with Star Trails knows that's an impossibility. That's why that's a fake picture that never happened. It can't happen because that camera is said to be on a moving object of 17,500 miles an hour, which means that the pictures from the so-called ISS, from space, which never took place, okay, we're all good? It would be streaking in the direction of the movement of 17,500 miles, and it's not. That's why it's a phony, it's an overlay.
Everything is different up there.
And
Don't
why
you
would
know
they
that?
be spinning anyway? Since we're told the reason they're spinning is because we're standing on an Earth that's spinning. They even assert that when we go to the southern hemisphere, another begging the question, oh, we see them spinning the opposite way. Well, that asserts that, yeah, they're spinning because we're spinning. So why are they spinning from up there?
Yeah, but that's not correct either. All the stars,
which
no
part is
matter
not
where you
correct?
are, rise in the east and set in the west, with the exception of Polaris. So, to assert that they travel in anti-clockwise and clockwise directions is relative to your direction, which means that, yeah, if you turn around, so when you travel out to what they call the southern hemisphere and then turn around, you could claim they're travelling in the opposite direction. Wrong! Because east would then be on your right-hand side rather than your left-hand side. And that's all you've done, turn around. But they're still going to rise in the east and set in the west.
Yeah, that's my point. I mean, you could do that in your own backyard. You turn around and they appear to go in another direction. But what I'm saying is that the reason they're even moving in that way, we're told, is because we're standing on a ball that's spinning. So when we're not standing on that ball that's spinning, why are they still appearing to rotate, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we're at the point where I think this nonsense that they also, in my opinion, do it deliberately badly so that it gets questioned. And I'm going to praise Mitchell again. You know, Mitchell quickly identified that it's just a way of begging the question that space is real and begging the question that Earth's spinning and arguing about whether or not we've got inertial or non-inertial reference frames in space. Wonderful. Let's beg the question that Earth's spinning, we've got orbits and we've got space, with this argument about whether or not we'd have polar and centric circles from the stars that are from the ISS falling around Earth at 17,500 miles an hour. When it's not falling around Earth, it's not in a second law of violation, sky vacuum, and Earth isn't rotating underneath anything from our frame of reference to give us Coriolis. So this is a cluster screw. But in my opinion, it's only a cluster screw that's out there so that we can all beg the question of space being real, beg the question of orbits, and beg the question of second reference frames, giving you Coriolis.
I think it's a little bit more elementary than that. I think they're dealing with mostly sheep who just need a picture. Once they see a picture, they accept it. There's no critical thought. There's no investigation. There's none of that.
Yeah, you're right. We're way over their heads when we say, well, hold on a second. That means that they're in the inertial reference frame and shouldn't have... We've immediately lost 90% of the globe heads. Too dumb to understand it.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Like, same question, hovering helicopter. Why are they still spinning?
And you'll get a response from thickos like Simon Dan. Well, because it's in the same reference frame. Earth and atmosphere travel as one. Well, hold on.
Also, the stars are in the atmosphere of Earth.
Yeah, exactly. That's where this goes for us. But for them, it's the same. Well, hold on. When you assert that, you're supposed to have 15 degrees an hour deviation. You know, all the wankers that come to the comments, 15 degrees an hour. Bob proved the Earth spinning 15 degrees an hour. Yeah, of Earth turning underneath the drone, and underneath the plane, and underneath the gyro, and underneath the pendulum, and underneath anything that's spinning as a claim to be spinning Earth at 15 degrees an hour? Well, what do you know? You still seem to be claimed to have that effect from the ISS, which isn't seeing a Coriolis deviation because it's not attached to Earth. Therefore, what? We don't have Coriolis effect? Yeah, we already knew. It's just a convoluted cluster screw of them saying we do and we don't at the same time. So that either they can beg the question that Earth and atmosphere travel as one, not giving them Coriolis effect, but assuming Earth spinning, or asserting that Earth does turn underneath at 15 degrees an hour when it does not, because it would shorten flight times.
Yeah, the dead giveaway is the picture that they post, NASA and these astronauts, and it shows at the bottom of the overlay on a phony spinning Earth an airplane right across the so-called concentric circles, which you know that was taken on Earth and then dubbed over that thing in the picture form. It's so, they've done such lousy work.
Look, they've got away with having people on trapezes. So, yeah, this is nothing new. The fact that it's always been terrible, you know, the moon landing things held together with coat hangers and gold foil. It's absolutely pathetic. You know, and most people don't recognise it. I worked with set design and prop design and building stuff out of papier-mâché to fool an audience a number of feet. Or, in the case of the prop that is that piece of crap that they claim went to the moon, a distance of infinite feet, because they're going to grain it over after you film it off a screen that's being fed by a video, that's being filmed by another camera. That's how they got the footage to the general public. In case you don't know, the claim to be moon footage of this prop that's supposed to have landed on the moon, right? The way you got it, if you watched it on a TV as a member of the public, was the people who are at the NASA control are filming a projection screen. And that projection screen is fed from a camera that's filming a CRT monitor that is supposed to be the live feed from the moon. So let's just assume it's coming off a tape. I don't know why I have to make a disclaimer. It is pre-recorded on a tape in a studio and then played through whatever technology, VCR of some description, video cassette recorder or reel of some description, into a CRT monitor. So you've got the filming generation, then the playback generation. So you're onto second generation into a CRT monitor. Then you're into third generation because it's being filmed with a camera. Then onto a projection screen. That's fourth generation. Then from the cameras, filming the projection screen. That's fifth generation. Then onto your TV screen after broadcast. So you're getting a sixth generation image. Now, everybody on the press side were moaning. Obviously, they just want a direct feed. The TV, they're supposed to have good quality, right? Supposed to be the most monumental event in history. No. Pre-recorded on a set with props, held together with sticky tape and dreams. That's what you got. A complete farce, totally obviously fake. Now, if you're too stupid to recognise stop motion animation in the form of the claim to be voyage through a second law of thermodynamics violation, I mean, that's where this argument ends. I don't need to make any of these details, because they claim to travel through a sky vacuum. So, no, that definitely didn't happen. But the way they faked it was with all the technology they had in films. Stop motion animation and sets, backdrops. And then crap that up as much as you can with NASA Crapovision for the actual broadcast. So that it's so grainy and so late generation that you can't hardly see anything in it. It's all washed out. Anyway, that's enough of my moaning about the absolute crap technology that's claimed to be proof of space travel in a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum. It's absolutely absurd. The fact that people don't recognise it on the modern equivalent, which is people on high wire, is just as pathetic as this nonsense that we've currently got with claim to be star rotations that form when you're on a spinning ball Earth because it's moving and the stars relatively to you are not. You're turning underneath them. And yet they've got the same bloody thing from the ISS in its claim to be sky vacuum. Total nonsense. And to the point of absurdity where we'll get frustrated about it, but lose most globeheads if we try and use it as any sort of proof. Most of them will glaze over when you say things like inertial reference frame.
No, I'm glad you brought it up because we have the best argument, which is the violation of the second law of thermodynamics. So we could end it right there. But it's interesting the quiet nature of the ballers when they can see the astronauts in the so-called ISS on wires. Clearly, everyone could see that, even they see it, but they never bring it up. I wonder why.
Because it's a joke. It's for children.
Yeah, that was aimed at the ballers in Discord to say, why don't you bring why don't you at least come and say, yeah, NASA is faking the ISS, but I still believe it's a ball. Why don't you at least say that? Can't even say that, can you?
I would make a channel recommendation. So Dilly Gill, Dillyggill. And the reason I'm seeming educated in terms of my very concise pulling apart of what NASA is, it's because of Dilly Gill. So I've watched most of his videos at least twice because they're exceptionally good and detailed in terms of his dissection of what NASA currently do and have done for the last 50 years in terms of their faking space and how they fake it, how they fake the live broadcasts to make them seem like they're in space, some of the technologies that have been disclosed to us in terms of current filmmaking, and they all line up perfectly, and he shows it. You know, he's also doing FOIA requests, Freedom of Information, to get some of the footage that they claim they have in its original format. He shows all of the documentation for his failings to acquire said information from NASA. So all that's getting documented on Dilly Gill's channel. He's doing an exceptional job in that regard. He's very hyper-specific, very focused, detailed. So check him out, Dilly Gill. Couldn't recommend him more.
Dilly Gill is ace.
Dilly Gill is ace. I really appreciate people who go into the kind of detail that he does and stay specific. He's one of the reasons I've tried hard to keep the debate hyper-specific, especially when we're live. Don't want to go off onto my woes and, you know, troubles with blown-up fridges and stuff. No, that might be okay for other podcasters, but we're in an arena where if we make the slightest mistake, if we spend too long talking about frivolous things, let's take Patricia Steer as an example. Mentions her cats and other hot potatoes, and suddenly she's ridiculed by her own side as not being hyper-specific enough. Now, while I don't fear the ridicule from my own side if I choose to talk about other subjects, I appreciate that I like Dilly Gill being hyper-specific, so I see my show as being hyper-specific about the subject of debating the nature of reality. Flat Earth, basically. And why let it segue onto coronavirus or the Freemasons, all of those things, not necessarily coronavirus, but certainly other conspiratorial subjects that seem to have been pegged with the flat earth subject, I've looked into and interviewed people about, and I hold no fascination for them. The nature of reality, on the other hand, I hold a deep fascination for, as I believe most of my audience do, and I've got a very dedicated audience. I'm very grateful to them for their level of dedication. I can tell it in the watch time. So I'm more than keen to take a leaf out of Dilly Gill's book in that regard and say, stay get my tongue around it, hyper-specific, because your audience will appreciate it. I don't want you to digress into subsections of your subject that aren't necessarily related. I don't appreciate it. If Dilly Gill started talking about something off topic, I wouldn't appreciate it.
Are we done with the housekeeping questions?
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
Discord? Anybody? Do we have anyone on Discord?
Only drawings.
Thank you.
No evidence of anything.
No evidence of anything ever.
Everything's a conspiracy.
Not everything is a conspiracy.
We
have proof.
My car must be, because it's in the shop again.
Right, save it for tomorrow's pre-show. If I'm not going to talk about my fridge, you're not talking about your car on this live show.
Not everything
They've
is a
only gone down
conspiracy,
8 miles.
just most things.
Say again, Arwin.
They've got,
Not everything is a conspiracy, just most things.
I think it's intentional that there's a lot of subcategories of conspiracy that get lumbered in with the subjects that are, I don't want to say dangerous. Maybe it is dangerous. If the general public all got just told tomorrow that they'd been misled in terms of the model and how it actually presents in reality, I think that would cause, breakdowns in societal levels, at societal levels. So,
Agreed.
based on that, it is kind of dangerous. And when there's that sort of information, you've got to kind of dilute it. And I think the way that Flat Earth's been diluted is with all of those subcategories of subjects. Some of them are directly related. You can look up the history. I recommend Johnny Cerrucci's interview with myself in that regard. Very detailed explanation of how we've come to be on a spinning water ball flying through a vacuum. And very detailed he was. But on the whole, most of the other stuff, I just think it's bundled in with us because it's kind of fanciful and interesting and keeps people interested on a conspiratorial level. And I don't want that to... I think it's poison. I don't want it here. I want to talk about Freemasons and what else have we got that gets bundled in with Flat Earth? It's kind of nonsensical. Mandela effect and what else we got? Normally have a list off the top of my head. I can't think. I'm sure there's a dozen different conspiracies that are kind of frivolous that get bundled in with Flat Earth when you first arrive on the subject. Certainly was for me. I'm sure it's the same now.
Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, all that.
Freeman, you name it.
Federal Reserve.
Shadow people.
Here we go. It's
Jet
flowing
fuel.
nice and free now. Here we go. Tartaria.
What?
Mud flood.
Hey, don't diss with Tartaria.
Mud flood. History hoax. Keep it coming. These are all
Birth
subjects.
certificates.
Here we
birth
go.
certificates,
Keep them
the
coming.
Vatican.
Right, all this gets bundled in. So you come to Flat Earth and suddenly all this other stuff, which in a lot of these lists, in a lot of that list that we've just given, I'm sure, again, if you got hyper specific about the birth certificate for the sake of argument, you could find a lot of useful information about it. But as a broad general thing, you've got to get hyper specific, so therefore shouldn't really be convoluting the idea that at a very simplistic level, we're not standing on a sphere. That's so much more simplistic. Doesn't need poisoning with some of the other periphery that may or may not be useful to a general Joe. But on a mass scale, the Western world thinks they're on a spinning water ball flying through a vacuum in violation of natural law when there's no evidence of Earth curve and we definitely aren't spinning, there's no Coriolis effect. So, to me, it's a much more cut and dry, no, you think you're on a ball and that's just flat out wrong. And merely a philosophical model that's been reified in modern society.
Well, if society all at once found out all the lies and all the reified models concerning Earth and topics to Earth at one time, at a single moment, can you imagine the chaos? No one would trust their governments. There'd be chaos everywhere.
I think some of them fear that chaos, and which is why they're trying to stop us.
Doesn't Mark Sargent talk about that in the clues?
Empty theatre. Yeah, maybe it is the case that it's a controlled release and it's the other way around, Chocolate. In other words, it's not that they're trying to stem the flow to rebuild the dam. Because I think if that was the case, we wouldn't have ever got to this stage. So where the opponents say, oh, well, if it was true, you would have been shut down already. It's like, well, no, I think we would have been shut down already if it wasn't the case that this information was going to be getting out at some stage anyway, and that was an inevitability.
Right. Maybe it's like a controlled therapeutics. So they sized up that since the information is going to be spread around through the internet and social media so vividly that something as upfront as this, it must manifest or it's going to blow up people like that. So they just let it be a thing and just try to compartmentalize it away from the big money interests and all that.
Yeah, I've got another one. Retro off the back of Retro Bill Super Chat. So thank you first and foremost, Retro Bill, for your Super Chat. If rockets save a lot of fuel when launched west to east, then why do aeroplanes use the same amount of fuel both ways? Well, they don't assert Coriolis effect when it comes to planes, first and foremost, Retro Bill. But that's another one of those conspiracies, right? The jet fuel hoax, right? Like Mandela and free man birth certificates.
Well, I think there really is something to it, with planes. Yeah, I think engineering basically caught up to the reality of what the public generally thinks about how it works, and they just kept it a secret. I think it is probably real.
Oh, right. So they might be ripping us off a bit for our travel flights because they're not actually getting free fuel. Let's say it's absolutely true. Not being funny or anything, but who gives a shit? Meanwhile, the Earth's not a sphere with a sky vacuum. That's the nature of your reality as you know it. I think the jet fuel hoax is just complete bollocks. Who cares? Even if it was true, who cares? So what?
I can actually tie it in.
Instead of
you know how? Well, if airplane... No, stop interrupting me.
No, 10th man. He's got a point to make here.
Making a point, 10th man.
I'm making a point too.
If they can lie and keep an industrial secret like that from the public, then they would just as easily fool the public with known lies that they are sitting on the truth of.
I think it's the other way around, but it's much more effective if I say, hey, Joe, right, guess what? The very nature of your reality, yeah, you'd be lied to about that. So when it comes to maybe paying a bit too much for your petrol or your ticket being $600 to the UK rather than $150, yeah, you can believe it that they're ripping you off and you're being lied to 6 ways from Sunday in every respect. There's many, many, many lies out there. And the way I can prove that is with the very nature of your reality not being as you've been told from birth, during your education, and reupholstered and represented to you at every single opportunity throughout your adult life. So based on that particular fact that your nature of your reality's not as you know it, believe me, you can be lied to about anything by the people who are in charge.
Before I was rudely interrupted by Arwen.
No, you interrupted me. This is serious, 10th man. When I'm making a point,
he was joking, Arwen. Chill out. He was joking.
When I'm making a point,
he was Arwen. He was projecting.
Arwen. I was going to compliment
he was joking.
you, Arwen. I was
then do it after I'm finished, please.
God.
Well, you be the one to talk about that. Anyway, leave it to Arwen to pump up jet fuel.
Missed the joke now. What did you say?
Totally missed the timing. He took it too serious. I was going to help him out there.
I knew that. I could detect that from your tone, but it's all right. Arwen did actually have a point to make, which is fair enough, and you don't want to get rumbled.
I love Arwen.
Arwen is ace. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!